current effort
conference
is
will
this.
now be recorded.
I'm on like 5 different committees in the town, mostly in connection with this, including the planning board. A lot went into this, a lot of research, a lot of writing, a lot of learning from others. And hopefully what I can do for you is help you get a sense of the scope of this. What are the basic initial choices you need to make? And then how to proceed, and then plenty of opportunity to follow up and see what we've done or others. Chesterfield finished their plan last year. North Elba, I think, is now published their plan. They've been working on theirs for a few years. This is a big process. So let me start by a little bit before showing you stuff. Just talk about what is a comprehensive plan and what is the alternative, because that's really the first decision you need to make. The town of Keene back in 2020 and 2021 did what is called a strategic plan. They took 5 topics. They had a lot of public involvement. They had no funding outside of the town, and they produced a document that was about 60 or 70 pages long on 5 big subjects from housing to tourism. It's not a comprehensive plan under the law of New York State. It's a nice engagement, but it had no legal impact. So a comprehensive plan, big advantage number 1 is it's a legal process defined by New York State law of how a town evaluates a problem, big problems, and can make decisions, especially with respect to land use, but not only land use. You can kind of, so if you don't go through the state process, you don't win in court if you get challenged after you make the changes. That's benefit number 1. Benefit number 2 is it's a framework for you to bottom up from your community. All the comprehensive plans prior to 2010 were done basically top down, including yours back in 1975 or the town of Jay's back in 1980. We did an update in 1997. It's kind of a once in a generation thing, although the state recommends you do it every 5 to 7 years or so. Nobody does. So the second thing is it's a great way to engage your community, and there's a defined way of doing it. The third big benefit is that virtually every major grant program by the state in the grant application as part of their criteria asks you, is this in your comprehensive plan or is it consistent with your comprehensive plan? If it isn't, or your plan's out of date, that's criteria you don't meet in order to get grants. So that's a very big piece as well. Another opportunity here is the breadth that you can apply to this. You can do this narrowly, mostly land use, or you can do it the way we're doing it, where we're covering just about every issue the community wanted us to talk about. And I'll talk more about some of the specifics of that. So the first decision you have to make is decide whether or not you want to do something like Keene did. They do it internally, no legal effect, no effect on grants, or if you want to do a comprehensive plan. Now, I chair the plan for the town of Jay, and I initiated the efforts as a citizen in conjunction with the supervisor several years ago. I ran a town forum prior to the election, and I had, because I was running it, I could insert the questions. I had every candidate asked in public, do we want to do this? And they all said, yay, verily. That's important, not in the sense of doing it in that way, but having support early, a consensus. The town board is ultimately the approving authority for this. You must have strong support from your supervisor and your town board, or don't bother. If you're totally united, you can't, if the board is disjointed, not united, it's not worth it.
Has that decision already been made?
Yeah, therefore.
Okay.
Yeah, well, there's 2 parts to that, making that decision. It's a consensus informally. Ultimately, when you do the application, you'll actually have to have a resolution from your board, because this is an official process.
Okay.
and you're going to ask the state probably for money. If you're going to do the comprehensive plan, the next best decision you need to make is, do you want to get the money from the state to help do it? And there's actually a lot of money for it right now. The state wants these done. They're putting a lot of money out. There's two sources of the money from the state. Source number one is the Department of State, New York Department of State, and that is part of the Consolidated Fund Application annual approach every year. Applications are due 31 July. The notice for that, the instruction set, comes out usually around late April or early May when they allocate the state budget and they know how much money. And this is not just for comprehensive planning, but for every major issue the state does. And this is last year's list of the state agencies and the money available, millions for all kinds of grants. The Department of State within this has comprehensive plan grants. Now, problem, it takes many months to prepare an application. It's not simple. There's all kinds of requirements in it. The packet is about this thick. This is actually the request for proposal for our contractor, which is mostly the essence of the grant. They're going to ask you for your plan, how you're going to do it, lots of detail. They're going to ask you for a budget. Got to get a minimum of 3 estimates by qualified agencies or qualified contractors to represent a budget, and that has to be based on a plan you have. So that takes time. Got to have support from not only your town. You want to get endorsements. We got endorsements from the assembly rep. I wrote one on behalf of the River Association. We had another one from our business. We had about 5 of those of various sources. They don't have to be, you don't have to chase to Albany to get it, but you want to show a complete packet, a quality packet that shows, hey, we know what we're doing, we understand the task, we're ready to do this. And the state asks about 20 or 30 specific questions that have to be answered. Essays, basically. Now, there's help available for all this. The Department of State runs a class with, as part of the planning training that the planning board folks can go to. The next one, there's training coming up at the APA. There's training usually from the Department of State as part of the various regional planning conferences. And you can talk to the people from the Department of State agencies themselves. Caveat: the state agencies can help you prepare your grants up until the moment when they issue the instruction. That's in April and May. Once they issue that instruction, they can't talk to you without talking to everybody. So what that means is they collect questions. They usually have 2 VTCs sometime in June and July.
VTC?
Or Zooms. Think
Okay,
Zoom.
right.
And where they answer for everybody the questions that got asked. Not incredibly helpful. So if you want help, you want to get that started before the announcement. So now is a good time for any grant, not just comprehensive plan, but anything on this list, this being last year's list, if you're looking for grants, because they will help you write it.
Where'd you find that? I took a picture of that.
Yeah.
I assume it's on their website.
Yeah, this is on the state website. You can just Google New York State Consolidated Fund Application. You don't have to, I can give you more of this stuff later if you're missing it when in this discussion. So that's source of funding number one. They will make their decision and their announcements around December. So, for example, Chesterfield did that process. They got their grant in December of 2022. Now, the second source of grants, which is out of cycle, is DEC, Environmental Conservation. They have a specific program that's only for grants to the Adirondacks and the Catskills. And they run about one round a year. The date's a little flexible. Their applications were due the year we did it on 1 October, or the notice went out 1 October. The applications were due the 31st of January. And then they made their selection and announced in April. We tried both. We started with the Department of State, made the application, had a really good application, and we missed by 2 points. Now, that's what they said. When you analyzed it, what they really do is there are the 10 regions in New York State. New York City doesn't get these grants. They buttered it on toast to everybody. Every one of the 9 regions got something, and they got something relatively proportioned to their population. That didn't happen by quality of application. They also tend not to give until you've made your second application. So, okay, learning that, that's fine. It's still a good exercise. You may get the money. And I will tell you then, having in hindsight, we got the DC grant, and we're better off for it. Department of State is very bureaucratic. They take a long time and they want to see all your interim products, and they take time to spin it around. DEC doesn't care. All they want to see is you spend the money well and get a good product. It's a lot easier to do the work. Now, you don't have to work directly with the state agencies. In fact, you don't. The key thing you're going to be working with on any of these grants is with Jessica Deloriez. She is the county grant officer in the county department, or county office of community resources. And she's also a great resource, and she's not restricted from helping. But she is, of course, managing the grant programs for everybody in 18 towns and not just comprehensive plan. So it helps to, go out and do what you can like this and learn yourself. Okay. You need a handful of very committed volunteers to do the work, to be the nucleus of making it happen. If you're going to have a very broad coverage like we do, you need even more people to spread the work around and cover various topics. You have a choice. You can either let your planning board organize and do this, or you can appoint a comprehensive plan special board. Totally up to you. If you're going to focus primarily on land use and nothing else, the planning board is sufficient. That doesn't mean they run and own it. It just means they're the agent that does it. Since that 2010 law, the goal of the state is this is a bottom-up process, not top-down. So getting survey information, engaging the community is a really important part of this and a part of your packet. And you really want that so that you get something that's supportable from the town. If you're going to go broad, what the mandate from our supervisor, Matt Stanley, was, I want to use the town committees. We had 4 town committees at the time. We've since added one because we found out through this process we were missing something important. So the planning board, and the way we're doing it, we talk about it is in terms of working groups. So the planning board has a given authority, but this is a wider problem than their authority. So we made it a working group for planning and land use to include housing. So a much broader mandate so we can look at bigger topics. Our Economic Development Committee, our Climate Task Force, which we also threw in the rest of infrastructure, everything from, whether we have all the right stuff with the highway department and water and electricity and so forth. Then we have a Parks and Open Spaces Committee. And the one we added was Human Services. That was the one we were missing. And, there's a lot of important things in human services that we just couldn't cover with the others. So we had these 5 committees, each of which meets once a month, all volunteers, and the leaders of those committees as working groups are all on our comprehensive plan special board. And we also meet once a month. The money you get, you hire a contractor who may have a consultant. So our contractor is an engineering firm called AES out of Plattsburgh, and they have subcontracted with a consultant, Dr. Ann Russo-Holland out of Willsboro, who's been making a living at doing this for 40 or plus years, to help. and she's actually doing a lot of the writing. And they bring you experience, they bring you expertise. They also can't run away when the work gets hard. You're paying them, which is important too.
How much are you paying them?
Okay, that's an important item. In fact, I talked to her this afternoon about what she thought I should tell you. And the one thing she wanted me to make sure and tell you is what your budget should be. You need $70,000 to $75,000 to do this. To do it properly, the whole thing, you're going to need $70,000 to $75,000. There are some towns that try to do it with 40. It doesn't go well. When we went to Department of State, I got 5 estimates from 5 different firms, and the estimates range from $75,000 to $100,000. This was back in 2023. I submitted the first estimate, the first go round, the packet and everything for $90-some thousand. One of the reasons we didn't get the money is we probably asked for a little too much. They picked places in the Adirondacks. They picked 2 towns and gave $45,000 each, and they're struggling like crazy because that's not enough money. The second time we went to the DEC, $75,000, and we got it. Now, 12% of that is coming from the town. We're using occupancy taxes. You don't have to necessarily in the DEC grant go with a 12% cost share, but you get more points for a 12% cost share, and they did, and so forth. So we made a choice that was amount that got us more points because we wanted the grant. Okay, this is what it looks like when you're done. It's a big thing. This is the final draft of North Elba's comprehensive plan. So it's a big document, kind of intimidating. You can pass it around. It's kind of boring. Now, about 80% of that is what they call a community profile. It's the what is and what has been defining for your community. And about 20% is the actual plan stuff. What are the issues? What do you want to do with them? What are the pros and cons? That sort of thing. This thing is, and forgive me for not being so well-bound or anything, this is the draft of St. Armand. Small communities, still a big plan. And these are all the various parts. So, Chapter 1, community profile, history, economics, culture. Chapter 2, natural systems, and so forth. And what's not here is Part 5, which is, because they didn't have it done at that time, which is the, what are our issues that we want to do something about? A comprehensive plan is advisory. It's not a decision document, even though it's not going to be, here's our new zoning plan, or here's our new planning regulations. But it may lead to that. The way to get zoning changes or planning reg changes is you do this first, and then you have a separate grant or even a separate study for those things themselves. So we're going to have a recreational master plan. We're going to have new planning regs. We'll probably not go with zoning, but we're going to probably do something we don't have right now, which is site review. We're looking to grants that will lead to a New York Forward grant, which is in the millions. And you have to do a whole bunch of other stuff first to prove you're worthy of it and capable of managing something like that from the economic side, and so forth and so on. This is an enabling document. This is saying this is what our community wants. Because it is advisory, the work of the Comprehensive Plan Board is advisory. That's important. Because it means you don't have to observe all the open meeting law. Now, we act as if, and we want to be fully transparent. All our meetings are in public. All of them are online as well as in person. We post the video. We take video recordings. We post that. We post the minutes. We have a website, planj.com. I invite you to all to go there and see stuff that's on it.
You guys all have the link for that. I sent it to you.
Yeah, and there's bunches of stuff on it. Now, that's probably only about 15% of the work. in terms of all kinds of other stuff that we've done that don't necessarily belong on the website. But it's a process. It's another way of how do we engage the public. Broadly speaking, we don't get a lot of the regular public coming to our meetings or watching. There is that, the usual suspects, many of you around this table, who really do and guide the work. Okay. And there's a lot of work. So the DEC grant is a bit more flexibility, but you end up with basically the same product. Now, the other consideration is that both the DEC grant or the Department of State grant are 3-year grants. So we got the grant award in April 2024, and the clock started, and we could legally spend money against it beginning 1 August. Now, the vast majority of the money was to go out and hire that consulting firm, which means writing an RFP, getting that through your lawyer, and as well as sharing it with the county. The county is really helpful. They're not the approval. All the approval of this is town board, and they have to approve the solicitation and the award, just like you would with anything else. And we put this out. We got it stuck with the lawyer for a long time, so we only had it run for about a month. It went out in July, but what that did is it allowed us to award the contract within a week of when we could start spending money. And that was on the 8th of August, and we had our first event, an open house, in the middle of October in 2024.
Do we have these documents, or are you taking them back?
I'm going to take them back, but you can access them.
Okay.
A lot of this stuff's online. I'm mostly trying to show you what's involved and the scope of it. We're going to probably finish in 2 years. Doing it, other communities have finished in 2 years as well. You have to be kind of aggressive if you want to do that. All right, another big decision you have to make. There are really 2 ways to do this once you have your grant. You can either decide, we're going to let the contractor tell us what to do and guide us through the process. And they have templates. They've done it. They can pull out of the file the way they did it for Town X over here, and they can guide you through. That's a choice. Some communities do that. A lot of them, Chesterfield did that. Blackbrook did that. Not necessarily the right way to go. Or you educate yourselves and you run it and they assist. That's what we're doing. That way we could tailor it to ourselves. Also meant we're doing more of the work, so we're getting more value out of it all. And we've tailored it in such a way that we're trying to use the money well and get a lot for less. So, for example, we don't insist that our contractor and consultant come to our meetings. They can be online. And aside from one of the initial meetings, they've always been online. That saves them money. It ultimately saves us money, and we can put it in other parts of the effort. And that's part of what we did for the trade-off to work down the budget figures, for example. But to do that, you have to have 1 or 2 people who really want to geek out and really understand and get to know this stuff and help really shepherd that process. And that's what I've been doing. Okay. So events, activities. The first thing we did is, and this is typical, you don't have to do it this way, but this is typical. We did an open house, advertise appropriately. When Chesterfield did theirs, I went to theirs so I could learn, and one of the other board members went with me. So we could learn what they did and steal shamelessly from their example. And we looked, and also to alter it. So for example, one of the things we did is we just set a window. We had a bunch of, we built a set of briefings in essence, and we posted them on boards, and then had other boards that were blank asking a question for feedback. And then people in the town could come and go. They didn't have to show up for a briefing. When Chesterfield did it, the contractor brought 5 people. It had to be at a specific time, had to give a briefing. We just tried to be efficient about it. So that was the open house. You can see kind of a flow diagram here where, we put it all in our gym and just, people walk through.
Are these available online as well?
No, but I can give you some of this stuff.
Okay.
Wherever there's duplicates, you can keep.
Okay.
So that's the first big event. And this was announcing to the town what we're doing and collecting initial feedback. And since we had kind of we were a little ambitious, we broke the boards down based on, the major committees, and we wanted to hear what what people cared about.
Mhm.
So that was kind of step one. Step two for us was to do a community survey. And the open house helped inform us
Mhm.
on the survey. Now this is, we had 434 people, as I said earlier, that responded. That's 17% of the town. The typical response, 17%. A typical response rate is 3 or 4%.
Mhm.
So we were astonished,
Mhm.
as were our contractor.
Mhm.
You can just glance through this. We put some pictures in it, and and ask some questions. About half the questions were sort of a answer by I care about this a lot or a little or not at all, or I'm against that, and the other half were open ended. We had an enormous response to this. We had over 3,000 comments.
If you're gonna go into this later, feel free to roll over me. I would like to know, we've had a few questions about how you determined what addresses to send these to,
Sure. So
or how you
Yeah,
acquired
so,
that information.
there's different ways to do it.
Yeah.
We did, we advertised widely, things like J Community News and the supervisor's bullet article and so forth. We got a little criticism later about not sending out postcards. That's another way to do it. Do what you can and what works for your town. We got a lot of participation. Some of we asked some demographic questions at the end, but everything was, anonymous. We were perfectly happy to get feedback from any people who had connection to the town, not necessarily living in the town. And it helped us identify some bias. And throughout the whole process, we've had problems getting young people to participate.
Mhm. Mhm.
I deliberately went to the local school and got a high school student appointed to the board.
Great.
What a
Yeah.
great idea.
I was a high school student long ago, and I was elected to the school board. And I thought, gee, what a great thing for me. Then
Mhm.
it's a great thing for that student. It's also a way to try to reach into the youth, which is a good thing. And the more of it, the better. But we've had problems with the under 40 crowd throughout.
Mhm.
We've had more people participate geographically within the acres.
Mhm.
Our map, we have 3 hamlets, we have the acres, and then we got just sort of everything else. And this is from the APA land classification with the markings on the hamlets and stuff. About a quarter of our town lives in the acres, and we got a higher percentage of feedback there. Another thing we did to try to get feedback was, of course, the open house. When we ran the open house, we were all at the open house, we were launching the survey. So, I think I have some around here. There was, these little cards. This one Chesterfield did. I liked it. We copied it.
Mhm.
It's got a little QR code on it. So we launched the first survey in conjunction with the open house. We ran the survey for 49 days. So lots of time for people to get involved and participate. Survey Monkey, contractor ran it. It was structured in such a way that, the same computer code, you only got to do it once.
Mhm.
You could go in there, you could start it, and come back and finish it, and so forth. And ultimately, truthfully, the best. We struggled a lot. We had 3 or 4 rounds in our group trying to figure out how to do the survey, what it should look like, what we should ask. And we took, this format, stole it from the town of Jay, Maine. Because we were looking around, and that's how we figured out they did a nice job. So we kind of used their format and some of our own questions. Now, we learned a lot along the way. We didn't need to ask, and we didn't, lots of substantive questions like, what about short-term rentals? Not in the first survey.
Mm-hmm.
It's an inquiry to find out what people care about.
Mm-hmm.
We got 3,000 comments. I didn't bring them because it's 148 pages of comments. Our contractor consultant analyzed that stuff, did a little report for it. We put some of the results on our website with the big bullets, if you will. And it was surprising. There was a tremendous amount. And the first survey was kind of oriented about the what do you care about, and a lot of people. There was a lot of consensus in a good way. 91% of the people told us they cared about the sense of community. 90% told us they cared about the natural community and the environment. 85% told us they wanted the town to have more participation in evaluating development, and so forth and so on. It was really remarkable the degree of consensus that we had across that. So the next thing we had to do was collate all that stuff, let the contractor and consultant do a lot of that work and try to figure out for us what did it all mean. And from that, and then also the participation of the working groups who, were free to, kind of do what they thought best, appropriate for their subjects. We generated a list of what we call focal topics. This wasn't the only things we were going to spend time on, but these were the major things, and they were pretty much starting, it's just from the town feedback. And it's moderated a little bit over time, but you can see for each group, there are 3 or 4 major topics that we wanted to explore in greater depth. Now, there's a term called stakeholder interviews. And, that's part of, you set it up in your process and so forth, and everybody kind of does that. It's finding people who can tell you things that take some expertise or they're a particular subject, specific businesses or art, arts and culture, so forth. We decided, our original process said we're going to do stakeholder interviews early, about the same time as the survey or a little after the survey, so that we can get some more views on things we need to care about. We then decided we got so much information already, we don't need to. So we deferred the stakeholder interviews for a year. In fact, we just finished them about 3 weeks ago. We did 16 of them, including people from other communities. Joe Pete Wilson, for example, from Keene, was one of our stakeholder interviews. Some were group interviews, some were individual. They were part of our contractual document. We interviewed people over at the APA staff. We interviewed the River Association staff, and so forth and so on. And we interviewed some of the folks in business and agriculture, arts and culture in the community. And what we were looking for and why we deferred is by now, we were into the writing of the plan, and we were looking for specific answers to questions, not tell us what you care about. And frankly, that worked out better for us. But that notion of a stakeholder interview is an important element you'll have no matter how you choose to do it.
Can you talk a little bit about how you determined the stakeholder groups themselves?
Absolutely. Yeah. We started by just brainstorming. We had a spreadsheet. We had 40, 50, 60. And it was just the consensus of everybody in the group or the nominations of people in the group. Too many.
Yeah.
And the contract called for like 10 group interviews and 8 or so, I forget the number, but it was about 10 group and 7 or 8 individuals kind of thing. An individual might be 2 or 3 people, not, so, and Chesterfield did something similar. And when I wrote the whole package and the plan, I was working off what the town of Essex did, and then modifying it for what we thought would work for us. So when we actually did the stakeholder interviews, we did 16. By then we knew what we needed most, what expertise we were short.
So you had identified topic areas that were from a collective areas of interest.
Yep.
And then you prioritized based on the volume of.
Well, in terms of also what we didn't already know. Now, our consultant over the time from survey 1 to, we had a year there, did a lot of research to get all the, the what is. Some of it's, but from the assessor, from various town reports and this and that, and so forth. And they kind of know what the content is. And a lot of that information search wasn't through the stakeholder. That was sort of at the end of what do we not know that's still important that we want to know.
Got it. Gaps of it.
You're getting real estate information from both the assessor and a principal real estate agent in our area. Getting information from our highway staff and our water staff, water and sewer staff, local communities. Faber Smith is one who contributed, Joe Pete Wilson, so that we could get the insights from other communities and how it connects back and forth. Okay. So another important event that I want to talk about is a workshop, which we did on the 31st of May. We had about 40 people, 40 to 50 people, which we pre-selected. It was open to the public, but we had pre-selected people for their expertise. This is well before stakeholder interviews, and we were trying to take and organize and get a sense of really how we wanted to organize going forward. And it was very successful. It took about 4 hours. We had tables where we initially broke people out in sort of random ways to talk about stuff, and then we realigned it so it was functionally and people could sit at whatever table they wanted. They were around the 5 groups that we had. The group leaders led that. We ended up, what came out of it, and there's a report on our Plan J site that covers it pretty well. What we ended up with the major themes of our study, and there were 4. Managing growth, rather than having haphazard growth or no growth, but how to manage growth. Enhancing quality of life. Creating opportunity. A lot of concern in the community about how do we get and retain families and workforce. Affordable housing is a huge issue for us. And then the last one is leveraging resources, which is how do we work with others? Some of that is getting money from places like the state, but some of it is how do we work across the rest of the communities around us together on problems that we can't solve individually, or if you want to create the right recreational tourism economy, it's really about something working together. The Four Peaks has recently come to our community. There's an opportunity there for doing mountain bike paths together with Wilmington. And another thing we did is we've reached out to the various nonprofits and agencies. One of the members of our committee is also the economic director of Roost, and he participated on the North Elba plan. He lives in Jay, so he's heading up our economic development and so forth. You find the people that where you can. So that workshop helped us, and from that we then framed survey number 2. Survey number 2 we had this summer, and there's some copies of this survey here. It's a little bit different. It's organized based on the workshop. It's more substantive questions. It's based on some of the things we knew. This is the survey where we asked about short-term rentals and so forth on those kinds of issues. To get survey number 2 out and get people to participate, we put together a little trifold, distributed them all over town. And this little document just tells everybody, hey, what's this all about? You know, who's doing it, what we're doing, what's next. And it's got the QR code for the survey. And we did all the usual stuff. We had less participation in this. We had about 220, I think it was 224 people in this one. But that's still a large number. We got a lot of feedback. It was a lot more divided because it was specific issues. But it gave us a lot of insight. And from that, after that, we knew kind of what else we needed to know. We knew what we could start writing and what our consultant could start writing. And that's when we figured out what we should do for the stakeholder interview. So those are the list of the major events. Now, where we are is done with the stakeholder interviews. All these things have reports, most of which are not on the website because they're internal working documents, really. Community profile, most 80% stuff. We got a draft of that back in early January. The major members of all the members of the committee had time to evaluate it. They either buy it in part or and she gave us back the second version, and I am in fact evaluating it right now for a second pass. And we're just going to put it on the shelf for a while. You know, we got all the format, we got the mapping, we got the contractor's done a bunch of mapping, so forth. And we're working on the next parts. Each group has provided, sort of a document on what they've done over this time frame, what they've considered, and that's going to weave in essence, a chapter on essentially the history and effort of tracking how we did this. Then we are working on what are the major issues and what do we want to say about them for that the last important 20%. An important part of that is also a community project list. It's not just a list of grants we'd like to have. It's all the projects, brainstorming sort of list that we want to be in the plan, whether or not we have the money, whether or not we have a plan to actually do them. Rather, it's to answer that question down the road, is it in your comprehensive plan? So we want to have that in there. Another thing we have yet to work out is the rollout, which I'm thinking we'll probably get. I don't want to put all the stuff in public until it's it's good. I'm thinking probably the end of May. It's kind of not notional target. Before we put it out in public, I want to make sure all the members of the town board have had time to see it. I don't no surprises. And if it doesn't sell with the town board, it's not going anywhere anyway. When we put it out in public, there is a legal requirement for 2 public hearings, formal public hearings. One by the comprehensive plan board or planning board, if you use that as your venue. And then you recast the document a little bit. And then before you go final, you have to have a public hearing formally by the town board before it chooses whether or not to accept the document. After that first set of hearings and whatever else you want to do with it, you also have a review, a formal review by the DEC or Department of State. They're mostly check-in format. State's a little more anal about it. And most importantly, by the county. The county community or planning board, basically. I forget the title now, top of my head. And the county, they're advisory. The town is the deciding agency, the town board, the elected officials. And once they vote on it, after you've had those hearings, the little bit of rehab, the insight that comes from the so forth, your plan is done. Another important element which some communities do, we're going to do, and some don't. It's an implementation plan. Chapter on implementation. How would you implement this? What are your milestones? Some communities have a follow-up. We're anticipating about a year post-plan, we'll have some kind of formal review. The 1997 update for our community, they have all this wonderful implementation plan, and about 60% of the implementation steps was, we'll fix it with zoning, and they never did anything with it. Zip. The plan also was a moment in time. It was a snapshot that really didn't capture, nowhere in that plan, 1997 update, does it use the word internet.
Why would it?
Well, because they didn't think about it.
Exactly.
They just didn't think about it. We're trying to address and think more broadly. So we're trying to think
I
about
don't
the
think that we
consequences. We're trying to think about things like AI now. So we've found that there are three overarching imperatives. I talked about the sort of four big boxes. For us, there are three overarching imperatives. One, digital connectivity. Got to fix that. That's cellular, that's Wi-Fi, that's broadband. We don't have everybody with it. And that's not only connection, it's also capacity. And it's a problem for us. And it's not an easy problem to solve because it means Verizon, it means the state. My understanding is that the state does not require cellular service as an emergency service yet. It's actually through the AG office of the state or the attorney general of the state, and they just don't require it. So in Ausable Acres, we don't have cellular service. There was a house that was starting to burn down, and they had to drive a quarter mile away to call the fire department because the state system is still predicated on everybody has a landline, which is no longer true. So that's an example of the issue of connectivity. We got to fix that. Second big overarching problem we have is our Main Street. Got to fix that. It's the way it appears, and so forth. That's going to take that New York Forward grant, but that's a tricky grant to get in the sense of it takes an awful lot of work because it involves private landowners, the businesses, the buildings. We've had a technical assistance grant already. We've got 3 or 4 other grants that are working on our Main Street along the way. Chesterfield's got a grant like that. It was like $1.5 million, I think, and they combined it with us, the community of Ausable, to get their grant, which is another tricky problem. We considered doing our comp plan with Blackbrook, and it was just impossible to do that, in part because it was across 2 counties to report to. They didn't want to do it, so they're on their own. They've actually had a lot of trouble with theirs because their contractor was lousy. And instead of having 3 hamlets and a couple other things, they got just stuff all over the place. So they have a real problem being a coherent community. You guys should be in much better shape than they are in that regard.
Said Main Street was the last.
Yeah, Main Street. And the last one is affordable housing. The Ausable Acres, from what the assessor told me a couple of years ago, in 2018, 2019, the lots in Ausable Acres, if you're familiar with it, are all 9/10 of an acre. They're kind of similar. You got stuff built on about half of them, and the stuff is kind of similar. Originally, it was sort of summer stuff. Now it's housing, either second home or a quarter of them are now short-term rentals, and so forth. 2018, 2019, the median price was $140,000. 21, 22, it was $350,000, and there wasn't a single one for that low price of $140,000, which was the median a few years. And that's been true across our community. It's leveled off a little bit. You got the same problem in that way, and that short-term rental is pushing out long-term rentals, and the money that is coming in is either going into that because you can make so much money at it. We had a property the assessor told me about. It's just one of those random properties out there. It's not lakeside. It's not views or anything. 2021 sold for $325,000. 2022 sold for $425,000. 2025, it sold for $525,000, and it didn't fundamentally change. Now, people down there are totally upset because all those sales affected their assessments. We're talking about 160 or so transactions. It started before the pandemic and accelerated since. So long-term rentals were pushed away. Price of the rentals has gone up. Affordable housing is a problem. We got to find ways to get at that. Along
You
those,
see how this is a problem that there was no way that the initial writers of the 1990
Right.
were going to be
Put a
able to
pandemic
predict.
in the plan.
Right, exactly. There's just no way that they're going to know this.
well, it's,
So in some ways, it seems as though a pivotal thing that we have to pay attention to is leaving it open for
absolutely.
the things that we cannot predict. Right,
But this is a sense of the community in a slice of time.
right.
It's a big effort. You probably won't do it again for 25 years. That's why they like you to do it every 7 to 10 years, but you won't. That's too much effort.
And money.
But it doesn't mean you can't have a good product. And it doesn't mean you can't write it to be open in. For example, it is absolutely foreseeable that there's going to be an increase in need for electrical supply. Whatever you think of climate change, it's either going to be by state mandate or the fact of its reality, and it is coming here too, and growth, you're going to need more electrical supply. Our substation is not good enough. Its capacity is almost being reached at this point. Okay, we're not going to solve that problem with a comprehensive plan, but we're going to mention it. And we're going to put it on the agenda of this is something the town needs to care about. And, some of that's from the feedback we get from people. Some of that's from, understanding our town. And it's a great exercise to be able to do that. So perfect? No. But you can still do a lot.
Right.
And it's worth it in the end. The communities that do this do find it can be a good thing. Provided that you do it in a sensible way, that you can get it done, and you don't get your community going to war with itself. There'll be lots of different opinions. An example of the two biggest things that we got the biggest feedback on were short-term rentals and our road system, and affordability was number 3. And it was remarkable. People who are already well established in their home and have plenty of income were among the people who really cared about affordable housing in the surveys. So it wasn't a case of
Right.
it's all about me,
Right.
which was really nice to see. Last comment. Along the way, our 5 committees haven't just been doing this stuff. They've been actively doing things. Our climate task force got bronze certification as a climate smart community.
That's impressive.
Got EV chargers. We got a $600,000 grant to improve our community center. $25,000 to evaluate it. We're going to be able to put on a new roof, solar panels, insulate windows. We identified in that Human Services Committee, we had a real problem with a small segment of the population, doesn't show up in the surveys at all, on food. So we established a new food pantry. You guys have a food pantry. We learned from you guys. We worked with you guys. Now we have a food pantry. Our town clerk towns aren't supposed to have official town-sponsored food pantry. They're supposed to be a nonprofit serving 1 person a month emergency food. We've been running it since November. We're serving 40 to 55 people a week. So that just became emergent. There's good stuff that comes out of doing this that just happens along the way. And I can say the same thing for all the other stuff. We just got one of 25 communities in the country that got a rural community recreation technical assistance grant. Fantastic. All the experts of the federal government helping 25 communities from Alaska to down in Georgia, and we're one of them. It didn't cost us anything but the effort, and it came out of this process. So lots of good things here that that can be benefits.
So you're saying it groups formed out of these specialty areas to then really go deep? on
Yeah, so
topic?
we had these 4 groups when we started,
Okay.
And then you had
and we
five.
gave them bigger missions, and then we ended up creating the 5th.
Mhm. Right.
How long has Jay had the groups?
They really were initiated with about a year before we started this, other than the planning board, of course.
So they were,
They came when Matt Stanley became supervisor.
so they weren't in response to a comprehensive plan? Matt
No,
kind of-
they preceded it, but it was a really good idea.
Right,
Mhm.
that's a good idea, because plastic, Saranac Lake, they have them too.
Yeah, and it served our community well, and it, expands the reach of activity. Now,
Right.
there's a little bit of strategic,
Involvement.
yeah, it's great involvement. It's a little bit of strategic organization here.
Mhm.
A member of our town board is either on or with each of our committees.
Mhm.
So we have that connectivity.
Mhm.
It's not about hiding the town board from this stuff. So Olivia Dwyer, who's on our town board, is one of the members of the Comprehensive Plan Special Board. And she also heads the Parks and Open Spaces Committee. Matt Stanley leads our Economic Development Committee. He's not the working group lead. Steve Forbes is not on our planning board, but he comes to all our meetings. And so forth and so on. So we have that connectivity. Each of the members of our town board has an assigned responsibility within the town,
Mhm.
whether it's the highway department and so forth. So we're getting good value out of that, and they are getting well informed, about stuff. I don't know how you guys do it, but it's not a bad model.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
No, we do it, I think, like, one person does the library, one person does the visitor center.
Yeah, exactly.
youth Committee, right, yeah, that type of thing.
Okay, one other thing I should mention. There is a law about this stuff. When it's part of town law, there's a paragraph, it's paragraph 272A, that tells out of New York town law how to do comprehensive plans, legislative findings there too. The other part that is important is what's called smart growth. You've probably heard that term before. The state has a bunch of smart growth principles. There was a law passed for that in 2010 as well. If you get the grant, it will be in the framework of smart growth. Now, the principles here, the state agencies have a little bit of variance on what they are. You're not required to do them, but you should consider them. Ultimately, the plan is yours. And the law does guide comprehensive planning, and you should certainly read this. It says basically about being bottom up and being open to citizens and so forth. And it's worth, sort of taking a good look at that. All right, I've talked long and
That was awesome.
covered a lot.
That was really awesome. That was a great background for everybody.
What questions
Yeah.
can I still answer for you that
Let's-
you'd like to get today?
I think let's start with everybody at the table, and then we'll move to anyone online who has questions, and then I do have some that people emailed me who weren't able
Super.
to join us that I can throw out.
All right.
Who wants to start?
I would just like to say, I am so impressed with Jay. I mean, all across, the historical thing that you just got.
Yeah, that came out of this.
Yep, it's just, every day you go to the J News and they've got another grant.
Oh, by the way, we got the National Historic Register just
Yes.
2 weeks ago. So
Yep,
Congratulations.
yeah.
it's harder than the state was harder.
Well, you have a nice group of dedicated people.
Yeah.
That's what it takes.
What do
It's
you
not a huge
wish,
group.
what do you wish you had done or wish you knew now? Down here.
Boy, that's a great question, because I just wrote a paper on that.
Ah.
Which I'm finishing right now as part of this effort of writing our history. So,
Mhm.
the consultant asked us to think about what we assumed
Mhm.
at the outset and what we learned.
Mhm.
So, I've actually, without giving the whole game away here, I'll just talk about a few things, because there are some things. So here were things that we assumed and each group has written a paper on this. So this is just the one I'm writing for the overall. We assumed we could compensate our lower budget with an ambitious scope by more volunteer work. In the use of the video conferencing, I talked about that. We assumed that we would get robust interest and participation in the open house, as did Chesterfield. We got half as much and we advertised more. Go figure. We assumed that we would need a community survey and stakeholder interviews to figure out the issues. I already told you we didn't need stakeholder interviews. We did something better with it. We assumed that expanding the scope of the town committees as working groups would work. It worked in some cases. The climate and infrastructure one, which I actually lead, we couldn't integrate the volunteers who come from the climate side and that interest with the hard infrastructure of the highway department, the water, the electrical. So we've had to really sort of, kind of work it separately. We assumed that the town would have a significant difference of opinion, reflecting diversity of age, family income, housing situation, and political orientation. Hasn't really proved to be the case. We assumed that we would be able to do a rigorous process of putting forth alternatives midway in the process. Say, here are our big issues. Here are the, say short-term rentals, we can do A, B, or C. Give us a decision, town board, at the interim, and then we can focus the rest of the plan on how. That didn't work. It's just too cumbersome, too difficult to have that public conversation. So we're going to end up with a plan that is more about, okay, here are the alternatives and here's our recommendation. We assumed that we could be entirely process neutral oriented and substance neutral. And I have certainly tried to be that as leading this as a process. I'm not, I have no particular outcome I'm looking for in this. I'm not trying to steer it. And that's been important and successful. But in the end, we're going to have to make recommendations because we're not going to be able to entirely catalyze that conversation. So those are some of the things that we learned in answer to your question.
Why can't it be like a living document that can be amended or changed over time? Why do you have to wait between 7 and 25 years?
You don't have to. The state recommends 5 to 10 years, maybe 7, but it takes the initiative because it's a lot of work.
So in other words, a change has to include an entirely new document?
Right, what he's saying is like.
I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
But is it because of the volume of perspectives you have to then?
I can't give you necessarily the rationale. I can only illustrate to you the way the state process is organized. Now, in truth, you can meet every year and work on the implementation and change it. It belongs to the town and the town board. So yes, but if you're going to make a major change, unless you're not going to really make a major change to your comp plan, you've gone through the work, you're going to do other things in addition to. We did our comp plan. It said we need to revise our zoning. Okay, that's a separate study. That's how you do it.
Or put something in place in the comprehensive plan to indicate when a discussion is occurring.
Yeah, you can put it in there.
It's almost like a decision tree of something.
An implementation plan.
Yeah.
But in the end, it comes down to your town board. If you could be like the J-Town board back in '97, they just basically put it on the shelf and didn't do anything with it.
What do you recommend are the first steps that a committee like this can take? So, you talked about you can apply to grants. Should that be a first step? You can seek a consultant. I guess you need the budget for it first. You can determine a budget. You can form these groups that focus on key areas. Like things like surveys, open houses, those are down the road, right? Those happen what are, in your experience, what do you recommend, at this phase, what should this team focus on?
Yeah, so, and I did talk a little bit to this, but, step 1, decide which path you want to take. You want to do the Keene thing?
Right. So let's say it
Or
decides.
you want to do a comprehensive plan?
Comprehensive. Let's say
it sounds like the
That's step
decision was
one.
already made.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what it sounds. So
And if you're going to do something that touches grants and is legal and addresses a lot and really engages the town, you do a comprehensive plan.
Yep.
So that's the first decision.
Right.
Second decision, find somebody who's willing to do the work and lead it. This is really hard. And like most things in any small town like ours and yours, it comes down to the individuals.
Mhm.
This plan is being done, and I don't want to say this to toot my horn or anything, but it's happening because I brought this issue
You're
to
driving.
the town.
Yeah.
I drove it, and I've
Yeah.
been willing to do the work.
So theoretically, we're there, right? You're leading it,
Yeah,
there's a
so
group
you
of
need that-
people, so it's a comprehensive plan, we have a committee, there's a person leading it, so.
Right, and then you need the support of the town board
Which we
That
have.
consensus.
Yep.
Okay, so
We're
that
already
there
there.
as well.
and the planning board.
I think so.
I think we're
Yeah.
there as well.
Yeah.
And you're probably there, but I'm just saying, you asked, what are the steps?
Right.
The steps where you started to get to, which I think is now the question of, there had been an attempt to have a consultant.
Yep.
That RFP was not successful.
Yep.
It sounded like there were a few steps you guys did prior to the writing of the RFPs
Sure.
to get the grant funding to then do all the other steps that
Okay,
you
Yeah,
outlined.
so once you've done those things, you have two sources of grants,
Right. The
Department of State
PEC.
or the DEC.
Does
I've talked
somebody-
about some of the pluses and minuses of that. If you want to go for the Department of State, you got to move out.
Does every town get a grant?
No,
Some towns get the.
well,
grant
you
from
could do
their
this without
tax
it, but
or-
if you're going to do this process, you're going to get a grant.
Got it.
I don't know of any town that's doing
It's
this
just too
as
pricey.
a comp plan without the grant.
So it sounds like that would be the next step, is getting the.
Yeah,
grant.
so
Yeah.
you're gonna wanna apply one or the other. Now, the
Got it.
interim step there is you need to learn how to write the damn.
Right, grant writing. It is
And
a
we have a
whole-
few people who are familiar.
And the way to
with
do
it.
that is,
Yeah.
like we did,
You have that experience.
go learn.
Not by preference.
I went to two different sessions that the state ran, sat in their stuff to get, to
Mhm,
understand what this was. When I started, I didn't even know what the term comp plan was.
mhm.
Mhm.
That gives us hope.
We have
Yeah.
one of the top grant writers living down
Yeah.
the street and all of their Adirondacks.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Well, but learning the state law, learning the process. I mean, I did that by joining the planning board, learning how to do that. I'm on all the freaking committees other than the open space one, because I needed to know something about them. Spent time with the right people. Jessica Loria is up at the county. There's a bunch of references. There's a manual that was written about 2015 on how towns can do this.
Mhm.
Got a copy of the application and the RFP that Town of Essex used. Didn't like all of it, but
Mhm.
I had a template to work from.
Can I put a little spin on this question?
Yeah,
So let's operate under the assumption that we start getting our ducks in a row to apply for grants and funding. But I think that we can also say that we have a lot, maybe not a lot is the right word. We have community buy-in at this point. We have people who are willing to start doing the work. I think that we would simultaneously like to get this process
yeah, let me address that.
fully
Yeah,
rolling
you and I
as much
talked
as
about this
possible.
briefly separately. Let me address that. There is nothing that prevents you from getting started on the work by waiting for the grant. You just can't spend money from the state in advance of the date when the grant starts.
So what should that work be? Is it getting community
So,
input?
so
Is
for,
it
so for us, for example,
analysis?
so, another one of these
Data collection.
another one of these things we did right and wrong. So when Matt Stanley got elected, I met with him at the beginning of his term and said, you guys signed up to do this. Are you really serious and do you want to do it? He told me, yeah, we should do this, but I don't want to do it in my first year because I want to get the town board coherent. That was a mistake. It cost us a lot of time. It was a mistake, not because doing the plan should have been done right away, but we should have got started on the preliminary steps, which took almost, to learn all this stuff and so forth. So, and get the grant. That whole process takes a long time. We should have done that right away, while at the same time he was getting the board
Right.
coherent and so forth. Now, when we did this, the writing of this stuff in conjunction with all those references and Jess Delorias and others and other towns and going and see what others were doing, I basically did under the supervisor. Then we got a resolution. We created the board. The board delegated, the town board delegated to the supervisor who got to be appointed and the work itself. I report on behalf of the board to the supervisor. I go to the town board meetings and I talk about this stuff once a month. But it officially reports to the supervisor, has been delegated to sort of overwatch. Then we picked the board long before we got the grant. So our first board meeting was in October 2023 in anticipation of the grant, which we actually didn't get in December. But we then applied in January to the DEC right away thereafter. We didn't get the grant then, next month applied, but we started doing stuff right then. And you're actually better off when you write the grant. They look for it. Show us what you've already done as part of the grant application.
What did you start doing? Did you go to other town meetings? What
I
was
did,
the first steps?
But in terms of what we did ourselves, so so by that time, Matt Stanley and I had worked out who we wanted on the board and getting them, asking the people and getting them involved in the board. And we had some criteria. First off, everybody who's on the board was going to do some work. This was not just come and kibitz. So the people we have on our board, we have the leads for each of our working groups on the board. We have the high school student. We have a deputy, Tim Rowland, who, as you may know, is Beth does the J Community News, and Tim is a reporter, writer, and brilliant and knows all kinds of subjects, especially housing. So he's the deputy. And we got a little bit of pluses and minuses. We had somebody be a board secretary. That's an important job. Unfortunately for me, she became took on our human services committee. So now I've been without a secretary. And I'm doing far more work writing minutes and stuff that I want and can find time for. So you need that. And I would love if we had a couple more people, somebody to help, catalog all the information and, the research and do some of that research. One of the aspects we did was go look at other people's studies. I mean, the Lake George, Lake Champlain Regional Planning Board did a study a few years ago on housing. Great statistics in it about the challenges of housing, stuff like that. Roost has a bunch of stuff. I wish we had one person on the committee for research, which we don't have, but you work with what you can get.
Makes sense.
And then the working group membership is open-ended. And the idea of the distinction beyond just saying, okay, you're now maybe the climate task force, but you're covering infrastructure as well, or you're the planning board, but you're covering housing and other stuff, is we want an open membership for those things. So even though the planning board has a fixed membership, okay, we want other people to come and be part of that. Invite people to come.
That's a
Now,
great
we didn't
idea.
have a whole lot of receptivity, but okay, most of these committees have 4 or 5 people who consistently show up and participate. Okay, that's enough. A lot of burden on the working chairs and some issues, you just, write a report. Okay, it's not going to get reviewed by everybody. And, I wrote a report for the climate and infrastructure thing. I shared it with everybody on that committee, but they didn't write it. And it would have taken multiple months to get a group to write it. Okay, it's an internal document. So what?
So it sounds like next steps here would be like formalizing almost.
Yes.
this
Yeah.
stuff And then forming the different
Exactly.
committees even, like. based
It's that whole notion of forming, norming, and storming. Have you heard that one before?
No.
It's a
Okay,
group
it's
process.
just the way people solve problems. It takes a while to form a group.
Yeah.
Get introduced and all that stuff, and then to create the norms. What are you going to do what is your communications going to look like, and how are you going to do this? And then storming. Now, I use an approach for a lot of this of the old kids game or the kids notion of stone soup. Y'all heard stone soup
Of course,
before?
yeah.
So, stone soup. So in the first meetings, I wrote some just stuff. Here's a bunch of things that have happened that are issues. Here's a bunch of subjects. And I'm just going to throw it out there. It's not great. But if I throw a stone in there, I'll get everybody else to bring the vegetables. So we had a little exercise at our second or third meeting where each of the group chairs simply wrote a paper about what they thought might be useful and important. Didn't matter what they wrote, but it got them thinking about the problem. That's an approach
That's great.
to try to get it to move along. And you got to figure out what works for you. And does that answer the question? There's a lot you can do without waiting for the grant.
No, that's good. Other questions?
Well, when you talked about like you say you were trying to save money using the consultants. What did you find the consultants most valuable for, where you couldn't find that expertise?
Yeah.
And what did you find
Great question.
you wish you had retained?
Great question. Let me put it in the macro sense, and then I'll talk to some of the little stuff.
Yeah.
I commanded a couple engineer districts for the Corps of Engineers, and that's all about projects, hundreds of them and so forth. And I saw this on a contractor wall in American Samoa. I've been using it in speech pitches ever since, and it's true about life and projects, and it doesn't matter what it is, including this. The 6 stages of a project. Stage 1, enthusiasm. Big ideas, big expectations, big goals. Often with high-level people saying, yeah, let's do this comprehensive plan. We can do all this stuff. Stage 2, frustration. Real life is hard. Whether it's site conditions for building a building that you didn't expect, or the fact that data is just almost impossible to get for some problems, or that it's time to do the work and some people just bail. Life is hard. There's a friction. Frustration. Stage 3, salvage. That there are some people that can't run away or don't run away, the heroes of any project, and they produce something. We're in stage 3 right now. We're producing stuff. Stage 4. Anybody want to guess? What happens when all those high-end folks see what happens in stage 3 and it's not what their big expectations were?
Disappointment?
Criticism.
It's the hunt for the guilty. Stage 5. The punishment of the innocent. Usually the people who are the heroes that save the day in stage 3. And then the final stage of a project. I've been to a lot of ribbon cuttings when I was doing this stuff for the Army Corps. Honors to the non-participants.
That was good.
Yeah. So are those
So-
non-participants the consultants?
No, not at all. Here's the point about the consultant.
Yeah.
The consultant and the contractor, and usually if you hire the contractor, they subcontract to a consultant. They bring you expertise. They bring you prior experience. And in stage 3, they don't get to run away. And you need people who don't get to run away. And it's like, we need to write something this month. We need somebody to go out and
So
do all this
You
research.
found them valuable when you
Yes.
hit a plateau or
Right.
a stopping point and stuff needed to move forward. You can
Yeah.
get back to them and say,
Right.
here's where we are now, actually put pen to paper.
We need somebody to run the website. We need somebody that organizes Survey Monkey.
Okay.
Somebody who takes all our great ideas on how to,
And
what
that
we
might
want,
be different for
and to
each group.
translate that.
That might be different for each group because they should have the expertise to be able to lend a hand.
Potentially, yeah.
Mhm.
I wrote the contract document so that each of our groups got so many hours available to do whatever they wanted with the consultant. Now, most of them haven't used that. Most of that becomes pretty simple. Getting, you produced, Olivia Dwyer did this.
Mhm.
Okay, somebody on our group can do that.
Mhm.
If we didn't have her do it, the contractor could do it. Formatting the surveys. We found one thing we liked. We said, please do this. Running the Survey Monkey. doing the analysis, writing a 42-page report on those 3,000
Mhm.
comments, and giving us all that. The consultant did that, turning all that research into first draft. Participate, yeah. So there's a lot you can do now in terms of things you can save money, so to speak, like the video thing. You know, Chesterfield had their open house. The contractor sent 5 people and ran it. Okay, we watched what Chesterfield did and we ran it ourselves. And we had the consultant plus the contractor show up because this was our chance to meet them. But we kind of, so, there are lots of things that, whatever you can't do for yourself, but the more you can, then
So you augment the talent that you already have.
Yeah, and it's not that we're saving money. Our contractor bid $72,000. We had a budget of 75, so we got 3,000 residual to play with for the mailing of the postcards we never did, or that we might do in the future before we get, one of the challenges of rolling this out is going to be how do we get feedback from the town from a big product? We're going to have an educational process. We're talking about maybe even producing little YouTube videos and sticking them as what J News. We'll have a postcard thing at that time, and we may hyperlink the report online so that people don't have to go through all of it if they're interested in one thing. We're still figuring that out.
That's great.
But whatever we can do that the contractor doesn't have to do, then we can have the contractor do something else. And the way it works really is the contractor gives me an estimate of what they're spending, or a bill, if you will, every quarter. And I evaluate whether it's fair on behalf of the town. And if it's fair, then the supervisor takes it to the town board and he gets, pays it. And then we get reimbursed through working through the county, ultimately to the DEC, to the grant.
Other questions around the table?
I know I've covered a lot.
These are good questions. No. Does anyone that is online have questions that they would like to throw out?
Hey, it's Carl. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Carl. Go ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to thank Wally for actually bringing everything to the table here that we need to work. Thank you, sir. And as far as the money goes, bottom line, as far as the town board is concerned, say it's an $80,000 when we finally get to it overall project. So we should budget $12,000, which is roughly, or no, beg your pardon, $10,000, which is roughly 12% of that.
Okay, can you repeat the question for everybody's benefit? I could barely hear it.
So Carl's asking if we're going to budget $80,000 for this project, what is the amount that we should actually set aside to pay ourselves?
Okay. So the DEC grant does not require you to even do a cost share.
Okay.
The amount of cost share you do, the more points and the more likely you are to get the grant. We made a choice of 12% because that was a increase in scoring. We took that 12% in occupancy tax. We had a $75,000 budget. The state gave us $66,690. That's how that number came from. We contracted using the RFP process for the contractor who bid $72,000. We still have $3,000 in the kitty. All the work being done by all of those of us in the working groups and the comp plan board are volunteers. Now, you can expense some work. There are ways in the rules to expense some work, but you can't pay town employees for some of their contributions. I forget the exact details of that technically, but broadly speaking, this is a volunteer effort.
That's good. Does that answer your question, Carl?
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. How about anyone else online?
Hey, Hannah, this is Doug. Just quickly, thanks, Wally. You've been very, very helpful, and I'm sorry I couldn't make it there tonight, but I had to watch the end of the Olympic hockey game here. It was which ended up coming really well for the U.S. Anyhow, yeah, and but samples of your RFP to your firms, or that you solicited the firms for. Is that something you could share with us, as well as the final scope of work that you used for them for
Absolutely.
establishing the contract? Because
Yeah, I'm happy to share the documents.
Yeah.
I'm also happy to provide the commentary about what I thought worked, didn't work, not just the documents themselves.
Can I give you my email? And
Sure,
could you share
yeah.
that stuff to me?
Yeah, that's probably a separate conversation, because
Yep.
we're talking several notebooks worth, or,
Cool.
it'll be on a flash drive when I give it to you,
Yeah.
but.
All right.
Because
There's a lot of
soliciting
stuff.
the RFP and soliciting firms is something that could potentially be done in concurrence, or at the same time as trying to get the grant. That's a lot of work, and it can be done in advance, possibly too, or at least getting a final product to really pull the trigger
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
when we get the money. Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, the guts of the RFP are part of the grant process, where you outline how you think you're going to do it.
Okay. Good to know.
So, yeah, and if you put forth a good quality application, your RFP is, in large ways already written.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
But that does mean you have to make certain decisions up front, like we did, about we were going to have these separate committee working groups and sort of have a process, and we knew kind of going into it, we'd have an open house followed by a couple of community surveys and so forth. Now, can you modify it along the way? Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks, Wally. I appreciate it. That's all that comes to mind for right now, Hannah. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Others online? Great. And I have a few that were emailed in that I want to
Sure.
go through, but if anyone has thoughts afterward, email them to me and, we'll communicate.
We're gonna, sorry, we have to go.
No, you're
to go
great.
get
Thank you,
my
guys.
son.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you. It was nice
Um,
meeting you. Thank you for all the information.
So we got into it a little bit before, but there's some more nitty gritty questions about the surveys and how you determined who you were going to send them to. One of them is specifically, did you include property owners, even if they weren't full-time residents?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And when you sent it out broadly, did you use?
We didn't send it, we advertised it.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
so
So
our-
you didn't send it directly to people.
In hindsight, if doing it again, I would send postcards to every address in town.
Okay.
For survey number 2, we put it in the town newsletter that went to everybody in town, every
Okay.
address in town. And when we get to this next stage, we will be doing some form of postcards as well. I can just read to you here from the survey who could fill it out. All full-time and part-time residents, property owners, business owners, frequent visitors, those who work in the town of Jay are encouraged to participate. Basically open-ended. And we didn't in any way have a control. Anybody who wanted to fill out a survey filled out a survey. And we didn't know who filled out a survey. So
Did you worry about repetitions?
the Survey Monkey system would not accept multiple surveys from the same computer.
Right.
So if you really were anal about it, you wanted to go fill one out at the library and fill one out at your home, we probably couldn't have figured it out.
Did you run into any hurdles with people not being able to use it online? Did you have
Yes.
to facilitate
That's why
hard
we had
copies?
paper surveys.
Okay, so did you send those people? Did you leave them somewhere public?
In survey number 1, we positioned them at the library and the town hall. We
Okay.
got very few.
Okay.
In survey number 2, we distributed them at J-Day.
Okay.
We ran both of them for 49 days. We passed them out in the coffee shop, and we had these as well.
Yep.
And we stocked a bunch, and we got quite a few paper surveys at J-Day, relatively few at the other events. And we had a lot of concern about whether or not we were reaching people. And ultimately, we concluded there's only so much you can do. It's like most things. You can make it available, but you can't make anybody drink. You can take, you know.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Post office
That's,
would be a good place.
that's
And,
helpful.
you know,
I don't know how
our,
to do that.
we had a lot of discussion about this, and our consultant really gave us a really good response
Mhm.
to our angst. She said, the surveys are only one piece of the puzzle. They don't have to be perfectly representative. You've got other means of it, getting input, the people involved in the process, the stakeholder, and so forth. And even when you get to the final decisions, the town board members represent the town. They have to use their judgment. They're not going to get 100% of anything in opinion.
Mhm.
We're getting them something.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna read this one word for word because I want that. So one broad question would be how they envision using their comprehensive plan to update their zoning code. For example, are they creating future land use maps?
Okay. The question is not fully answered yet.
Okay.
It has been my position from the beginning. We don't have zoning other than the APA and J. That it be a consideration in the study. At least once a generation, we should think about it.
Okay.
And decide yes or no. That decision will be made eventually. The current bias within the planning board and its members is that we may not need formal zoning in addition to the APA. And we're more likely to, but we do need probably site review. And we know we need to improve our planning regs, which were last updated in 1991. And do not provide enough authority for the community, and the community told us they want more voice. So what we are doing about it, our supervisor has been invited to present to the APA board next month what's called a community spotlight brief. We are using that and working with the APA staff to do two things. First, we want to get a much better fidelity on our map. Not just the APA criteria, but all the other things where they wouldn't let you do. The slope is wrong, the soils are wrong, it's a view shed, and so forth. And combine that with other things, flood map. FEMA flood map was just being redone, for example. We know where ice jams have taken place, and so forth. So we want to have a very good fidelity map. And then we want to be able to take that map and say, working with the APA staff, okay, for managing a growth, do we need hamlet expansion? We lost 80 some properties in Hurricane Irene. Where would that be? Do we need what we're terming, one of our planning board members calls upzoning, where instead of resource management, it might be rural use or what have you. And the APA has a lot of specific aspects to that, technically. So we can't do it enough by ourselves. But do we make that request? Do we look at infill, primarily in a hamlet where you think about more properties within a given space? So that's one initiative. The other initiative we're looking to talk to the AP about is their help in redesigning our planning process. That will be a follow-on effort. It won't be solved by this plan, but it will be initiated by it. What we'd like to have the APA do with us on that is be able to create a planning process that instead of being sequential, across from New Vita right now, we've got a request before the planning board for a major subdivision, our terms major subdivision, not for different criteria for the APA, to put in a bunch of new development up there. And that's currently before our planning board. We're going to have a hearing on it next month. We had our first meeting on it this past a week or so ago. Well, the APA's issued a non-jurisdictional finding on it. There are things the APA just by their mandate doesn't cover that we would like to cover. So we need to put it in the regs. We don't want to be redundant, but we also want to be concurrent rather than fully sequential. Because otherwise it's already solved and we don't really get much community voice. For the last several years, there's been a developer who wants to build like 135 properties. He's a Florida developer. But the 4 rounds with the APA, it's never come before the community. Okay, the community hadn't had any voice. We want to solve that. So we're looking to build a process to do that. That'll be one of the major outcomes. So
That's a great point.
that's part of our effort of where we're going. Obviously, no decisions have been made on any of that, and it will require the support of the town board. The planning board has already informally supported it as we're looking at it. So and my conversations with the APA deputy directors over there, planning and communicate and public affairs has been, they want to up their involvement and up their game on helping community planning. So it's actually a pretty good opportunity to do it. So that's what we're trying to do. The last thing I want to say on this one, and it's probably important for you guys too, is when we did the stakeholder interview with Joe Pete Wilson of Keene, part of what he told us is what they wish they did.
Mm-hmm.
He wishes they got ahead of the problem. They didn't on a lot of this land use stuff. And he certainly recommended it to us. And we all know it's already coming. It's already happening. One of the challenges they have is rich people show up, they kind of do what they want. And when the town tries to enforce anything, they say, we have unlimited money for lawsuits and you don't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to put in place the right rule set first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really important opportunity. So I'll give you an example of how this matters. Our code officer provided us data on the number of permit requests for category single and double housing, which is really single housing. From 2014 to 2025, we've had 135 applications for a single home permit. 88 of those have been in the last 6 years. In other words, the rate of that has doubled. It's already happening. And where does the money go? It goes to short-term rentals first, and it goes to second homes. Why second homes? Well, partly, climate stuff elsewhere, and we live in a nice place. But if you actually here more than 182 days a year, you're subject to New York income taxes. So a lot of the second home people, that's not their plan.
Yeah.
Does that change the community character? Maybe. We welcome those people. We should have, we should. But at the same time, we want to protect. We don't want to turn into Colorado and have every possible property built.
What's the acreage on that 135?
I don't remember.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not before us, so it's kind of lost traction. Part of what we would care about in that is, the developer wants max money. That's mansions and short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
We want some affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
Another example of things we already consider is, our fire department wants to make sure that if there's a development, they can access it.
Mm-hmm.
And that means a turnaround for the vehicles, and that means certain category of road and so forth.
This is awesome.
So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, absolutely. And I have one more from someone who wasn't able to be
Sure.
here tonight. And I'm going to sort of read this word for word as well. Which, actually, before I do that, I'm going to preface. I think you sort of answered this a little bit throughout the evening, but I want to make sure that I understand it appropriately. So Jay received its funding for developing its comprehensive plan from DEC's Adirondack and Catskill Park Community Smart Growth Grant Program. But Wilmington applied to the Smart Growth Community Planning Program run by the Department of State. Why did Jay choose DEC's grant program for funding? And it sounds like that's just the one that you received, and also DEC's had a little bit more leeway for doing things.
Yeah, Yeah, this is a little repetitive. We applied to the Department of State grant. We just missed by 2 points.
Yeah.
Because they layer it like butter.
Yep.
And because there's a certain bias to do it repetitively.
Yep.
Okay, the next one available to us was the DEC grant. Now, in hindsight, I'm really glad we got the DEC grant.
Yeah.
That's why Chesterfield took 17 months from date of grant until their first open house event.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
Department of State is bureaucratic.
Yeah.
DEC's been easy to work with. If you are going to manage your comprehensive plan as opposed to turn it over to your contractor to manage, the DEC grant is an advantage to you. Now, the county is happy to work with either. And either can get you through this.
Perfect.
And if if you can't get ready by the 31st of July, the next train that leaves the station is the DEC. If you can get ready, okay, do the grant, and maybe you get it, maybe you don't.
And DEC is October 1st?
They put, so there's, when do they put out the announcement, and then when do they accept application? It was, I don't know if it'll be the same, but it was really nicely timed in that the application for the state consolidated fund was late April to May when they get the budget right. Gets the announcement, the application due 31 July.
Yeah.
They make their decision about December. The DEC application came out on 1 October, but their application was 31 January. So you already knew whether or not you got the grant or not. And then they made their decision in April, the end of April. And as I described, we started in that October working with our committee and so forth. So we didn't have the grant in hand, but by the time we did have the grant, we were ready to award the contract. The RFP had been out, and so forth. So, we were able to accelerate that process. We went from the date of when we got the announcement of the grant to our first event was 5 months.
Wow. That's great. That's awesome. This is really awesome. Thank you, Wally.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight.
Go on. I'm only a
I love it.
little ways away, so.
Any last minute thoughts that anyone has for Wally?
What we should do right away is start planning our 5 groups.
If you wish to do it that way, yeah.
Yeah.
More, yeah. more about
Yeah,
it.
we're broad. We want to go
Yeah.
broad.
I mean, those were good. Those worked for us.
Yeah, they
They're
seem,
a good starting,
Yeah.
yeah, they seem like the logical categories.
Yeah.
So here's my thought, guys. And Wally, I would be happy to have you stay while I sort of disseminate my thoughts amongst the group we have here tonight. I'm going to organize all this stuff, not tonight, probably tomorrow morning, and share it with everyone that I've been emailing. And I think my goal is to include a few questions there, including, do we want to form 4 to 5 groups, similar to how Jay has done it? Are there other ideas that people have for how to do this? I have the information that folks have sent me regarding suggestions for stakeholder groups and identifying those. So I'm going to put all this stuff in an email, send it out to everyone with a few specific questions. And if everyone could get back to me, that would be awesome. My thought right now for sharing this information a little in the most organized way possible is that I have created a Google Drive from my campaign account. And my thought right now is I have some of these documents organized that I've put together, and I would like to give everyone access to this Google Drive, and we can share it amongst ourselves. I won't give everyone editing access at this point, so if you want something added or changed, you'll have to email me and go through me. But this way,
Can we
everything
take
is sort
the
of
surveys?
in one
Yeah.
place,
Okay.
organized, where
Definitely
we can
go through those.
access it and be able to see it.
And this.
And if
Yeah, you can have it.
Oh,
anyone has
excellent. Those are the 2
suggestions or
things.
anything of a different way, then I am open to that, obviously.
I think Google is the way to go. All right.
I have a digital file.
I agree.
Okay?
I don't think
Yeah.
it hurts
Okay.
to curate the information a little bit.
Yeah.
And some of it's been thought out a little bit,
And
but
you have a
I'm
law
agreeing
there?
that,
I mean, we
you know,
can
Yeah,
we'll
we
try
can
to do
lift
Yeah, but I'm.
Oh,
reading
this
it
is
back
yours.
again.
and start
If you
making
want the law, that's fine.
right of like
It's good to
how
know.
we can disseminate that.
Right, I have never read the law, so
Very big.
it's good to know. I'm sure it's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the smart growth thing, I think is really probably a key orientation type
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, it gives you a lot of subjects to consider.
The only challenge
Oh,
with
smart
mine is
growth?
what I would do
No, I
in
didn't.
case of handwritten.
But you have to.
Yeah, I just have one copy, so.
Literally just put all of
You can
these.
take it.
No, I can print another one on my computer at any
Okay.
moment.
There you go. Perfect. Well, I have a concussion. I'm not spending any time on the computer that I can avoid.
Yes.
Sucks.
Okay, then working list,
Yeah,
proposal
That's how you would
points.
do it.
okay.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Keep it,
Yeah,
Thank
Yes.
you.
again, I got plenty of those.
for sure. Yeah, you know, it's
I
funny.
think
I only brought one,
Also
but
being like,
I think Hannah's gonna want your flash drive.
like, but I'm hearing things in this process where like, I'm researching.
part of what I did when I
I'm
started
a,
this is I built a
analyzer,
notebook
I'm a
for every
this,
member of
where
the committee
I lend my strengths.
that had all the
But there's
opening
there's
stuff.
so many talented people.
Oh, really?
in this
The
group
RFP
who
stuff,
Together,
the
but we
contract
need that
stuff, the
framework,
process,
just like
the
what they were
law.
saying. What was the
I
first
just gave
step?
every
What
member
are
of the
steps?
board a
Almost like
notebook
a one
That had it.
pager
that
that's
had
saying like,
Yes,
these are
no
the
7 or 8
milestones.
No
things.
excuses.
Yep, and these are
Well,
the things
you
we
know,
can
it's
start
whatever.
now, these are the
Yeah,
things
you
that
gotta know
can't
this stuff
happen
if
until
you're gonna
this
be on the
happens.
board.
What
Yeah,
can
you know,
run in
just
parallel?
getting everybody
Like if we
participating.
can,
Yep.
yeah, like maybe
The
actually
best thing we've
come together
had all
live and
along is
sketch
the
that
people who
out.
are participating on this board.
So we can
We've
make
had
a
28
master
meetings so
plan
far.
document.
And we've got,
And then,
the
then we
nucleus
know.
is all the
Well,
same
yeah,
people who've
it
been
sounds like
driving
you-
this.
Looks like you
Yeah.
have
Right.
thought.
Yeah, you have some
No,
great people down there.
I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around getting the thing organized
Yeah, yeah,
and start checking the boxes off now.
Yes,
We got, there's,
yeah.
money's gonna be down the road, blah, 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 but how do we get there?
How to get started. Yeah, and we can do a lot of things right now. And to your point, an RFP is you're working on various things, and then it's almost like if we've got that piece of information, we just want to know what are the categories of information in the RFP that have to be submitted, right? And
Yeah.
it's almost like, oh, someone could take this part of that
Correct.
on and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we were just saying, maybe a great first step is we're literally coming and whiteboarding together this milestones, what activities are taking place, right?
Fascinating, look at that right there.
Yeah, that's the,
That was from the workshop.
yeah. But this one plan on a page is our collective operating process of, it's called a Gantt chart. And it's saying, these are the milestones, and here are the activities with a line of things that can run in parallel, things that can't start until something else stops. And you map all those things out together, then we know, okay, here's our first steps. And now who's gonna take on leading that first step? So maybe that's a great next meeting to have.
Easy way to follow the process.
Yeah,
Instead-
exactly.
instead
Where
of
are we on the
Going
map?
backwards and, oh, shit, we didn't do that.
Right, or, you know, hey, here's an idea. It avoids
point.
the, here's an idea, that's great, but that's for step 5.
Right.
We are here on step 1. Yeah,
I like it. So
okay.
let me organize this a little bit.
Yeah, I hope we have enough people for this.
Okay,
I'll
because
email
we have one of
everybody.
those. Here it is. There you
There,
go.
you have a decision tree. You have a step-by-step map. Mm-hmm,
Which
And-
document is this now?
This is where the public engagement is.
mm-hmm. Perfect, yep,
Now, this is more complicated than we actually ended up doing.
yeah, it looks very, no
But,
offense.
you know, but the steps are all very logical.
Yep.
They're all based on where you have to go
Yeah,
and the
Yep.
sequence.
we can turn, I'm gonna snap a
Will
picture.
you send that to me as well?
Sure, yep. I think a Gantt chart is gonna be a little easier for us to
And-
follow.
You know, this is
Right.
each of the times we figured to touch the public.
I like that. Touch them. Don't touch the
Whether
public.
it's surveys or, you know, so forth.
We need definitions of appropriate things.
Yeah,
We crossed the line.
yeah.
Sorry, it's late, it's Friday, I'm tired.
Yeah, this chart is important too.
Yeah.
This went to the contractor and
Mhm.
saying, this is laid out with the contractor saying, for each of our phases,
Mm-hmm,
what do we expect of the contractor?
mm-hmm.
And do they
Okay, this is a
participate? Do they draft?
Yeah.
Do they advise? Do they facilitate? Or do
Great.
they lead?
Yep, that's great.
You actually,
Or
you,
do they attend?
you saying definitions made me think of another question I had. When you were talking about people, supplying information about their demographics, did you define full-time resident versus versus part-time resident in any particular way?
If you look at the back of the survey,
Yep.
you'll see the questions we asked.
Okay.
And we kept them to a relative minimum. Age,
Mhm.
gender, relationship to J. You either own a primary residence, a second home, rent a residence, own property rented to others, work in the town, own a business, attend school, or vacation and visit. And we asked, how long have you been part of the community? 0 to 3, 4 to 10 years, 11 to 20, 20
Not
plus.
I gotta go.
And then we asked,
I mean, it's the.
where do you get your information?
Yeah.
This was survey number 1.
Do you have, ma'am, do you have a
Yeah.
copy?
Yeah,
I
sure.
think this is,
Yeah,
we
but,
can all like take a look and see if we think,
and we had similar
Yeah, I
questions.
think,
yeah, we can scan it and.
Yeah.
We had similar demographic questions in survey number 2. But they were relatively limited again. We had long discussions about how much stuff we needed,
Yeah.
and this was enough.
Okay, that makes sense.
and you want to bring the community together, not.
Yeah, well,
Right.
another important question we did ask was, where do you live within the community?
Okay.
Mhm.
In the acres or in Sable Forks, so
Which
forth.
Hamlet, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so, you've got copies of this now.
Are those are the surveys online as well?
I don't think they're still online.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
We can create.
That was
it's actually
awesome.
not-
Yes.
That was awesome.
Mhm.
Cool. This was amazing.
Can I jump in?
Yeah,
Carl.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, this is really a dumb question, but there's a lot of things in town that we want to move on long before we actually have a significantly finished comprehensive plan. Is there any reason why we can't be putting out RFPs for things like dredging the river, so that we have actual tangible evidence of what we want to work on when we do have the final plan to get grants?
yeah,
Carl, I'm gonna wait. Hold on. I'm gonna let you go. Carl, I'm gonna answer this sort of from my board member role. We're doing that also. That's already kind of happening simultaneously. There's been discussions about doing that.
every one of our groups has been doing initiatives without waiting for anything further to happen. We've gotten lots of grants, lots of new activities. I talked about the food pantry. We've got separate planning now for a recreation master plan, a bike plan, and several grants for the economic development of Main Street. So this process encourages doing more now, not just waiting.
Yeah.
It's great.
And it creates a structure, those committees, to do it. The climate one, been very active, collecting points that, we're halfway to silver certification, and all kinds of, an example of that is we're running an annual energy sustainment fair in September. We've done it a couple of times now, and so forth and so on. We're renovating our community center. We've put solar panels on our highway garage. We built a salt shed, got a grant for that. So this process is not about waiting.
Define a problem and find solutions.
Yeah, and so these committees are working both on the plan and all those other good things along the way.
Does
Of
that
course.
answer?
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. This is great.
Thank you again.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I wonder what it looks like out there.
Yeah, drive home.
Another 6
Or
inches.